Yeah, the fucking beauty of technology, mate. I'm absolutely useless when it comes to technology. Honestly, I'm shit.
Yeah, it looks like a
So,
really nice setup you got there.
it is, mate. I've got the studio to my right hand side. This is sort of the producers area, but I'll do my online podcast from here. And then I don't know if you can see it.
Nice. I love the
Yeah,
logo.
it's cool, mate. It came about. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. One side's a skull, one side's a happy face, one side's yin and yang, dark and light, addiction, recovery, whatever you want to call it. Um, but yeah, it seems to have become my thing. It's part of me now, I guess. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it, mate. It's cool.
Yeah. Do you know what it reminds me of?
Well,
Of like a
Two
smiley
Face off
face.
Batman. Oh yeah, yeah,
No, a smiley face on like a tab of acid, and then the dead inside that you feel.
yeah. And yeah, the skull reminds me of just all the dark, horrible fucking times that I had in addiction, and yeah, it's symbolic of who I am and what I do. I'm thinking about getting it tattooed on me as well. So,
Very cool.
um, yeah, man. But yeah, like you said, mate, we've been speaking for a while. I think me and you are very similar in our beliefs, values, skills. You're a lot further down the line than I am, but I think I'm following a very similar path.
Mm.
I'm doing a level 7 in trauma informed psychology at the moment, studying neuroscience, studying NLP, the addictive brain, the biology behind addiction, and I love it. It's sort of, I don't want to say it's became a new addiction, but it almost, if addiction's a negative, this is positive, right? So
Yeah.
but it's become something that I do every day. I study in one way, shape, or form for a couple of hours a day, whether that's with the guy who's mentoring me. Don't know if you've seen him on social media. Teaspoon, his name is. Um,
I've not no.
yeah, go and follow him, mate. He's fantastic for people like me and you. I think you benefit a lot as well from just listening to him. He's a psychologist of 30 years, NLP master. Really good guy. But yeah, so basically, mate, I'm here today because I want to hear your story. I want to hear who you are as a person, as a human, and I want to give you the opportunity to explain who you are as well. So, I mean, we'll take it from the beginning, where you grew up, hobbies, how you fell into addiction. Don't like using the word fall. Um, and yeah, we'll go from there, mate.
Developed. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And always love telling my story because I always find new things come up each time I say it because I'm learning more and more about myself each and every day. So I was born in England. Have an older brother and older sister. Brother's 18 months older than me. Sister's just over 4 years older than me. Dad is an entrepreneur, so he was often traveling around. Mum was a homeopath slash kind of stay at home mum. And from the ages of 0 to 6, lived in England, went to a few different schools, was bullied quite a lot. Um, Never really enjoyed school, kept getting in trouble and was bullied. Moved around a few different schools before we moved out to Kenya. And we moved up there when I was 6. My brother and I were inseparable. We'd do everything together. We'd run around. We're basically joined at the hip. We get into trouble. We used to throw things into the road, build roadblocks, and with like either toys or logs, and just do your typical kind of naughty boy type things. And then when we moved into Kenya, it was a massive shock. Um, and my brother and I started growing apart because all of the older brothers out there would bully the younger brothers. So my brother started bullying me. I couldn't really understand why. And I remember very vividly, I think we had been there for maybe half a year and we were at a golf club. My brother went off with all the older brothers and I followed in tow. they all turned around and said, like, what the hell is he doing here? Like, he can go hang out with the younger brothers, go away. My brother told me to go away. I felt very abandoned, pushed aside, kind of left out to dry. And I remember walking off, not really knowing where I was, and just crying endlessly. I couldn't even find the younger brothers and was feeling very isolated and alone. And then that feeling of isolation kind of continued for my time out in Kenya for 7 years. I kept getting in trouble in school. I destroyed classrooms. I vandalized the car. I blocked toilets. I was always either the ringleader or somehow involved in getting in trouble in school. So then I got sent to school in England when I was 11 to a boarding school where I cried for the first 2 weeks pretty much non-stop until eventually I stopped and then started getting into the classroom and actually began to flourish in school because it was very regimented. You do this and you do this. All your time is very full, and that was actually very supportive for me. But even then, I never felt like I really belonged. I always felt that I was on the outside looking in. So I discovered pottery, loved working with my hands, and spent pretty much all of my free time in the pottery room. And also, this painting behind me was when I was 12 years old. It's like a self-portrait, which I quite enjoyed being creative. And then left there, did fairly well, went to secondary school and started smoking, trying to be cool. And there's one regret from my secondary school is in the first year, everyone had to go and try out for the choir. So I went in and I sung, it wasn't great. The music teacher said, okay, place one hand on the grand piano, one hand on your throat, and sing again. And I didn't even recognize my own voice. It was really good. And he said, look, I'm not going to force you to sing, but I highly suggest you stop smoking. You come and start singing. It's not the same as in prep school. Because in prep school, if you're in the choir, you were gay. And I didn't want to be deemed as unpopular or whatever. So I said no, and then carried on getting in trouble, started smoking weed, started drinking when I could, and ended up being asked to leave for basically stealing money from people. And then this is kind of where I started going down the darker road. So by this time, this was my sixth school that I'd been to, the second secondary school. And everyone there was very wealthy, very much into their smoking weed, drinking every weekend. So I fell in with that crowd because I had no idea who I was.
Yeah.
I'd been bounced around different schools, was in no school for more than 2 years, always changing friends groups, really lacking that identity piece that's meant to happen between 12 and 18 because it shifted so many times. I didn't really know where I stood. And then I thought, okay, I'm not that intelligent. I don't like school. I hate studying. These people I can have some fun with. I can create a connection and a bond and an identity through smoking, through drinking every weekend, through getting shit-faced, going to raves. And then I heard about these people taking MDMA. I was like, oh, that sounds really fun. I want to try some. And he said, no, you won't be able to handle it because whenever I smoked weed, I'd mong out and I couldn't handle weed very well. And then tried MDMA for the first time. Incredible. I dropped half a gram and basically just had a very amazing night kind of on my own. I'd go and do my own thing, listen to the music and kind of just really live in that moment. And then from there, I started going to more raves and it's kind of evolved and developed and then left another school because I wasn't studying, wasn't doing very well. But then when I actually tried coke for the first time, I thought it was Mandy. And I saw my mate, had some lines up, and he said, do you want one? I was like, yeah, thinking it was Mandy, did it. On our way to the pub, I said to him, like, you sure that was Mandy? He was like, no, it was coke. I was like, okay. And for the first time in my life, I felt focused. I felt that I was fully here in the moment and that I could achieve anything. And absolutely loved it and had probably one of the best nights on it. Just in the pub, talking to anyone, confident, kind of very certain of myself. And then I was kind of chasing that feeling for a long time. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, or if you just want me to hit the main points.
So, I mean, from my perspective, there, you know, I don't want to constantly refer back to my story because I tend to do it a lot, or have done it a lot with people. When we're having these conversations, I'll say, "Yeah, it's similar to mine. I did this." Um,
Yeah.
when we talk trauma, that's obviously the abandonment of your
Hmm.
brother. Um,
Hmm.
probably your father working away as well. That's
Hmm.
probably got a bit of a connection to your inability to regulate. And this is a conversation that I've had with my missus quite a lot. My girlfriend has had a lot of traumas in her early life as a young girl. Never used drugs ever. Totally against them.
Mm.
And she says, "Well, why does trauma cause it?" And you've just explained it there, probably too well. And it sounds inciting for somebody who's young and going to listen to this. But I want to reiterate: do not ever do drugs. They'll fucking ruin your life. But it's very similar to me. When I first tried cocaine, it changed my whole
Mm.
mindset. I was bullied as a child.
Mm.
A lot of the physical abuse from my mother. My mum was quite violent to me as a child. Um, and I grew up. I used to love writing. I used to love writing stories. Um, what I've learned over the last 12 months, I'm a very visual thinker. So my mind's like a cinema. I can tell with you, I think you're a kinesthetic sort of person. Um, and when I got to 17, 18, 19, it's that wolf pack mentality. I'm not going to write stories. Me and a friend of mine, Jonathan Nichols, he was a Jehovah's Witness. And we used to stay in at dinner time and write stories in the library. Or because I was good at football, I was a goalkeeper for 20 odd years. Because I was good at football, I became part of this group of people that I sort of put my own interests and hobbies aside to blend in with a group of people that I thought were popular.
Mm.
Um, and a lot of the time, you find out that the guys who were very sporty when they were younger, they're not very academically, um, we'll call it educated for the sake of the conversation. As we get older, you're right. We don't learn key skills. It's that
Mm.
jock mentality where you hit the drink and drugs and spend the next 30 years going, fucking hell, what's happened to my life. And that's sort of, I'm very, very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate that I've found the position that I'm in. Very fortunate.
Mm.
And I can't reiterate that enough, is that, well, we're not lucky because we work hard, but I feel blessed.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, carry on, mate. 17, 18, 19.
Yeah. So I just want to quickly touch on what you said there. So firstly, I'm sorry you had to go through that as a child with your mum. I'm sure that must have been incredibly challenging for you, especially when we're young. We think everything is our own fault, and we turn everything inwards and we blame ourselves. And it takes a lot of work to reprogram that mindset and actually realize and forgive ourselves for what we did in those moments and the way we kind of interacted with them. And it's also interesting that your missus has been through trauma but has never touched drink or drugs. And it shows that, yes, trauma is a massive reason of addiction, but not everyone that goes through trauma does fall into it. It's those that are exposed to it and actually try it and start thinking, oh my God, yes, I actually feel good about myself. I no longer have to feel that pain. And I'm also a visual learner. So imagine you're this murky black sponge that's just cleaned the grease off 50 plates. Yeah, it's thick, it's heavy, it's murky, it's a lot of pain. That's you and all your trauma. And then your Coke, your MDMA, your painkillers, whatever it is, comes in, and that's hot water going through the top of the sponge. And all of that pain just starts to wash away. But as soon as that water stops, the sponge drops back into the water and it soaks up all that pain again. So we think, okay, this is awful. I need to keep this tap running so I don't have to deal with this pain.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
I
And
my
I can get,
girlfriend yeah.
Go
So my girlfriend, there's a reason why she doesn't touch drugs. Her father, um, I was about to say this isn't the trauma that she holds, but obviously it's a huge part of it. Is her father took his own life years ago, um, and he was heavily into drugs. So I think that's where the
on.
the pain of not wanting drugs in her life comes
Mm,
from. Um,
mm,
but yeah, I think that was a driving factor behind her wanting to be different, wanting to not be part of the environment. And we all grew up on a council estate. I grew up as a you know my food was frozen dinner from a big blue bin bag every night. That was my dinner for 10 years. That's probably why I'm so tall, because it's got fucking toxic waste in it or something, maybe. But yeah, that was the factor behind why she
yeah.
didn't use drugs, because I think it was a conscious choice every day
Mm,
after her father took his own life, that she said to herself, "I'll never ever ever use drugs," and she never ever wanted to be part of a family that uses drugs. And then I rolled into her life 3 years ago when I met her, and lied to her, told her that I was. Everybody knew me for taking drugs and selling drugs at
mm,
one point or another in my life. And when she asked me, I said, "No, I'm sober. I'm sober." We manipulate, we lie, right? And
good day.
what she didn't realize is I was 17 years into a 20-year inevitably cocaine addiction.
Mm,
But yeah, that's
mm. And we
that's
lie
for
because we
another
fear what the
time.
truth
Yeah,
yeah, will do. And the lying is easier to control the outcome.
easy. Yeah,
And it's easier
yeah,
to protect ourselves when things don't go right because we're not making ourselves vulnerable. And I can go into more of the trauma informed and kind of deeper understanding of what actually led me into the addiction, or I can continue with kind of sharing my story and then have the insight in sort of afterwards and kind of pinpoint the different moments.
yeah, yeah. You carry on with your story, mate, and then we'll go into
Yeah.
the trauma
So
informed after.
I think I was probably 17 or 18 at the moment when I had the first line of coke. I was still going to raves. I wasn't heavily into it at the time. Still smoking every now and then realized I stopped smoking weed because I didn't enjoy it. I was just doing it to be part of the group, part of the crowd, and kind of fit in. I never actually enjoyed the feeling of getting high from smoking weed. So I started drinking more, started taking ecstasy in college, just for a bit of fun. Um, I do it in a science class with a bottle full of it and just sit there and I think, okay, sort of, there's no point in me studying. I don't want to go to uni. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I couldn't envision my life past the age of 23. Not necessarily that I was going to kill myself, but I just thought I wouldn't maybe live past it. Something might happen. I just had no kind of forward thinking. I was just, let's have some fun. What's the point in anything else? Then dropped out of college at 19. So I wasn't studying, failed all my exams, and then started working as a chef. And it was fairly fun. Again, drinking quite a lot, taking loads of coke, and eventually got fired from there. Then I think I went and did a ski season, which was great fun. Even though I failed the course, I still could teach in the snow. But again, drinking heavily, I'd go on a night out and pass out and wake up like in the ski school reception at like 5 in the morning before anyone else got there, and I think, okay, I need to get back before I get in trouble. Wake up, have another beer, get on the slopes, and just my whole entire life revolved around drinking. I'd rather go and have a few pints than having a meal. Um, and then came back from there, worked a few other jobs, was heavily into getting into coke quite a lot, taking it pretty much every day on my own, out with people. People wouldn't even know if I was on it because that was just my baseline. And then broke up with my girlfriend, and it's quite interesting what I noticed in myself. At this time, I was a bartender and broke up at first. Oh, this is horrible. I don't want to leave you. Sort of, I don't want to break up. All the other emotions that come through during a breakup. And then as I stopped taking coke for a few days, my mindset shifted. Okay, I'm actually free now. I can go enjoy Australia. I can go meet new people. I can go and have sex with them. I can go explore the world. And then the second I take another line, I'd go straight back into that paranoid, possessive, like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want you to go and do it with people, and just repeat that cycle. And then I get
Yep.
sober again, I'll be fine. And I went out to Australia and I actually did quite well. I stopped taking hard drugs for a few months. And then out in Australia, they have MDMA, which is fucking expensive. It's like 30 quid for a point 0.1, which is nuts. And it's not even that good. But again, I spent hundreds of dollars on like a gram and wasn't really enjoying it. Didn't take any hard drugs. Then I drove from from Broome, which is in the northwest, down to Perth over a few days. And on the way, I got a tattoo on my chest of a Celtic symbol with the four phases of the heart round, or four phases of the moon round it. Basically represents new beginnings in UV ink, so I could only see it. Thinking, okay, I want to stop taking drugs, take a break from drinking heavily, and kind of get my life on track. This was when I was 23. And then got down there and was exposed to meth. And meth was one of the three I said I'd never take, which was heroin, crack, and meth. And the first time I was exposed to it, I was like, nope, I'm okay. I'm not taking any drugs at the moment, having a bit of a break. And then got drunk one evening, ended up smoking quite a lot, and was really shocked how much of a fuck it mindset it gave me. Went into a club, saw this pretty woman dancing. I think with a boyfriend, I was giving her the eyes and dancing with her, and he came and basically tried to get me to push back. I was like, what? Just no fucks given whatsoever, and just kept dancing. And then also started getting into loads of acid. Took, I think, 6 tabs. I went clubbing, which was really good fun. So I had quite a lot of fun out there. But then when I came back to England, that's when things started to really take a turn for the worst. Lockdown had just happened. I'd started taking coke pretty much every day. I was working a job that I was getting paid, I think, 1,700 a month for, but not doing fuck all. And basically spending all the money I earned on getting gear, getting beer, started stealing, started buying lottery tickets with my parents' money, like scratch cards, just so I could have some cash, stealing from my gran, and doing anything I could possibly do to get some cash so I could pick up. And I'd go and pick up about £350 worth every day or two and just repeat. And I started doing 3-day benders almost as a way of proving my friend sort of wrong, because he once asked me on a night out, what's the longest you've stayed awake for? And I took it as a challenge. So before then, it was maybe a day and a half. I thought, okay, I'm gonna try for 2 days. And then I went for 2 days, passed out the second night. And then I went for the third day. And then I was like, okay, I've been awake for this long. Try and play golf, go out to the pub. And then I passed out for 6 hours. And then he went back to America. And that kind of sent me spiraling, because he was my probably closest friend at the time. And I started doing it on my own, hiding in my room, playing video games all night long, hiding it under my bed, opening beer cans underneath my duvet so my parents wouldn't hear, and just repeating this cycle day in, day out until I got made redundant from my job. And I remember very clearly, I'd been awake for 3 days. I'd run out of money. I was overdrawn on my overdraft. My credit card was maxed out, and got invited to go up to the pub. And I was like, oh, I'm so tired. Let's have one pint, and I'll go home. From this place of just being drained and depressed, and be like, oh my god, I'm so tired. I need some sleep. Remember so clearly that if this is a pint, I got to about here. I was thinking, okay, I'm feeling fucking tired. All I want to do is go home and sleep. Got down to here. I was like, okay, I'm still feeling exhausted. Then I got down to here. I was like, let's go. Let's go. Just that little bit past that half a pint, and that energy had awoken inside of me. I was like, okay, let's get really drunk. And I still had no access to cash, so I kept asking my friends, "But if I buy you £50 worth of drinks, can you withdraw 50 quid for me, so then I can go and get a bag so I can get sober and drive home?" And they were like, "No, not going to do that." And eventually, I texted my brother, said, "Look, can I borrow £500 so I can get out of my overdraft, withdraw some cash to get some coke, and then I can be sober enough to drive home?" And at this point, he thought I'd stopped for a while because we'd taken drugs together in the past, like many years ago. And he said to me, "Look, Rex, I thought you'd stopped." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, I did for a bit, but I've started again. Is there any way you can send me some cash so I can sober up, so I can drive home?" And he said, "Look, Rex, it's incredible. You've managed to stop in the past. You've had success. You've managed to stop for a couple of weeks, even a few months, but it hasn't stuck. Do you think it's time you get professional help?" And because he had acknowledged my previous attempts, it allowed me to feel like I could finally breathe and I felt seen. And I was like, okay, thank fuck. So suddenly someone is actually seeing my attempts, my struggles, and all the pain I've been trying to go through, and has invited me and left the choice up to me to see if I want to get help or not. And I was like, yes, I need to understand why I can't do this. Whereas if he just said, "Look, Rex, you need to go into rehab, you need to sort your life out," I would have said, "Fuck off. No, I don't. You're a piece of shit." And just gone very defensive. And then he went further on to say, "Look, Rex, I could easily send you £500 and you could drive home, but how do you think I would feel if I wake up in the morning and I hear on the news that you've wrapped your car around a tree?" And that was the point which really drove the nail home. And then a few days later, I told my parents, and they were quite shocked, but also very supportive when we came up with the plan. And I managed to actually get sober from coke on my own after that night. So I had no access to cash. I wasn't really going out, but I was still drinking a little bit because I didn't think I was an alcoholic. And then my brother even said, "Do you think you should just try the 12 steps?" And I was like, "No, I need to understand where this is coming from and why it's here and why I can't stop on my own if I'm ever going to change." So then went into rehab for 28 days and had process groups every morning for 2 hours, which was incredible. Seeing grown ass men like yourself breaking down in tears and just pouring their heart out. Yet I still couldn't do that. It took me a couple of weeks and forgetting to take my jumper off in order to do that, because the emotions started building and rising within the heat of myself, and then started coming out without me forcing it or pushing it down. And then, yeah, worked the 12 steps for 6 months, completed them, then ended up leaving because there was no processing. It was just openly sharing, which used to infuriate me. So then I got into the 9-month coaching container I did, where I started learning more about the origins of addiction and where it comes from suppressed emotions, unresolved trauma, all these different things, and started kind of unpacking the pieces of me in a completely different way. As well as last year, I was diagnosed with autism, and I'm waiting for an ADHD assessment. I've already had one, I'm waiting for a second one, which I think the autism itself put so many things in place because I always felt very overwhelmed, overstimulated, like I didn't quite fit in.
Yeah, where were we, mate?
You're
Where were
just
we?
saying you had a woman on here recently.
Yeah. So I had a woman. She's a psychotherapist for children. Um, she teaches people about the fight or flight process, and the focus is very much on the amygdala. So she writes children's stories on how we can control the sort of the process around regulating our emotional state. And she told me something about ADHD, and the ADHD brain is so much more exposed to addiction because of the dopamine process in ADHD brains. Um, I've never been diagnosed with anything, never. Um, I know I've got PTSD. I mean, that's a certain, just because of the fucking childhood I had. ADHD, something that I've looked at a lot. I'm very impulsive person. Um, I think this might sound like a limiting belief, but I think that impulsiveness will always be a part of who I am. I think it, I think it can. It's quite a positive thing now. Now that I'm not in addiction, the impulsiveness to get off my ass and go and fucking do something, I enjoy it. Um, when I got this studio, I had I had decent quality cameras, but they weren't the best. Um, and my missus wasn't very happy, but I spent a small fortune on getting this room done in like a week, and then struggling to have cheesy beans on toast for tea for a couple of days, waiting to get paid. But yeah, so what I'm saying is, I've never been diagnosed with anything. But do you believe it's necessary for that diagnosis to understand who you are as an
Oh,
individual?
very, very good question. So I don't think it's necessary, but I think it can help a lot of the ifs and like doubts and kind of I'm pretty certain, but I'm not 100% sure. It helps, yeah, it helps with clarity because I never even considered autism. I grew up with the diagnosis of dyslexia, and I love maths, hate English, hate geography, hate anything that's word based, but anything with numbers, come to me. I love it. There's a definite answer. I still mix up a plus and a minus or a decimal point here and there. But with the autism, 2 girlfriends ago, she worked at a psychiatric hospital. I was like, you're probably neurodiverse or autistic in some way. Ex-girlfriend's autistic, and she helped me go through the process. And what the formal diagnosis has given me is a deeper understanding of where what I'm really good at, where I struggle with naturally and biologically, but how I can learn to use it to my advantage and what things I need to put in place to support myself. Whereas before I was kind of struggling through life, getting frustrated. Oh, I really want to do this, really struggling. Why isn't it coming? And just that repeated cycle going again and again. Couldn't really figure out why. And I realized, okay, like let's say friends, for instance. I grew up, never really believed I was part of the crowd or had many friends. And now realize that that's always been something that's been quite challenging for me is to create those deeper connections. But now I have a deeper understanding of how I can create them and how I can go about it. And I've even been reading a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, again and again. And there are 2 chapters I reread recently of the power of someone's name and also do this and you'll have friends for life. It's basically how to have good conversations with people is find something that they say that you are genuinely interested in and talk about it and ask them more questions, get them talking about themselves. And I used to do this in Australia without knowing it when I pick up older women in their late 20s, early 30s, even into their 40s. I'd talk to them, find them really interesting, and I'd pick up on what they're saying. And I love that because I could just get them talking. They felt seen, they felt understood. Whereas I never liked going out with younger people because there was all this bullshit, all this talk, always trying to make yourself bigger, all this inauthenticity. And I was like, I have no time for that. I just want to actually have a good question and good conversation with people. But that's me going off on a tangent. And to come back to your question of, do you think it's necessary? No, but it is very helpful because it can give you that deeper understanding of why, of what happens, why it's there, and you can either use that information to hold you back and deem bad behavior as something inevitable, or you can use it, okay, this is something I naturally struggle with. How can I support myself moving forward? And this is something I've been exposed to quite a lot at the psychiatric hospital I work at. Where these people, you're right. Yeah, yeah.
one.
They're these
Yeah,
people
go on.
who get
Sorry, go on.
diagnosed with EPD or ADHD or autism or the rest of it and use it as a massive permission slip to just have no impulse control, to deem bad behavior. They'll kick off, they'll start fights, they'll throw stuff and say, oh, I can't help it. I've got EPD, I've got ADHD, I'm autistic, whatever. I'm just saying, I can do whatever I want. I can hide behind this diagnosis. Or you can do what I think is healthier and see it as okay. These are the four walls that I struggle within. Where can I start building some doors?
I feel like for me, and this is the conversation that I've had with a lot of my friends. So let's take TikTok, for instance, where a lot of people will use their usernames will be their illness or their issues, the darker sides of them. And I've always said, you may have ADHD, you may have bipolar, you may have an addiction, but you are not bipolar, you are not the ADHD. And I think I'm going to be straight. I think a lot of the time we identify with the negative aspects of who we are as individuals because we're not happy with the positives. We identify more with the darker sides of us because it's the most interesting part of us as who we are as humans. So let's take a lot of people in addiction, and I say this with the kindness of heart, but unfortunately, a lot of the time, the addiction is the most important part of their story. Um, so, when we let's get into it. The word disease, the word disease. I really do not enjoy that word, and I understand why it's used because of it's symptomatic of disease, especially in opiate addictions, alcohol addictions, when you become alcohol dependent or opiate dependent. Um, but they tell you that it's a brain disease, right? So the brain changes. If I have 7 of these, the brain's going to change. If I drink 6 liters of water, the brain's going to change. The brain's changing all day, every day, as you know. And I believe when we call it a disease, it massively lacks accountability. It lacks the ownership of who we are as people in addiction. But when we talk identification, people will say, you know, they've been sober for 5 years. Alison was a good example. My sober story, I think her name is. Love Alison. She's doing the level 7 trauma informed training that I'm doing. I'm 7 or 8 months in. She's 2 months in. And when I first met her, she said, I've been sober 15 years, but I'm an alcoholic. So I said to her, how are you an alcoholic if you've been sober for 15 years? And she said, well, what do you mean? Really nice. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't a competition, just a friendly conversation. So I said, when we talk the neurological levels of change in NLP, for instance, if you're identifying, your environment has to match it, right? It must do. If your environment is that of somebody who's sober, but you're identifying as somebody who's in addiction, they don't match. Therefore, something's going wrong in those levels, right? And she was like, fucking hell, I've never looked at it like that. And she was like, I'm not an alcoholic. I was like, there you go. How much more refreshing does that sound to say, or even feel, to say, I may have had an addiction problem, but I'm not an addict. I say to people, when people say, oh, when I first came onto social media, I'd say, my name's Lee. And they'd say, well, what type of addict are you? And I'd just say, well, no, my name's Lee. I'm not going to sit here and say, my name's Lee, I'm a cocaine addict, because the fact of the matter is, I no longer use cocaine. Therefore, I'm no longer addicted to cocaine. And it didn't go down very well. It didn't go down very well at all. And it just seems to piss everybody off. And everybody was saying, it's not your fault you've got this disease. And I'm like, well, whose fault is it then? Because I broke my missus's heart. I put my children through pain and suffering. I'm the one who abused my family, manipulated them, and lied to them for the sake of my own desires and well-being. So am I to say that I'm not responsible for their pain and suffering? No, I refuse to do that. Accountability, they say, oh, it's not a choice. It fucking is in the initial stages. It is in the initial stages. You can't jump into a swimming pool and expect to come out dry. It's as simple as that.
Really,
As simple as that. So I've gone on a little rant there, but I want to, from the learning and education that you've done yourself, I'd like to know your
I
thoughts and
absolutely love
feelings on that.
those mindset shifts, and really love the way you approach the topic with, I think you said Alison, about the kind of from an NLP point of view of you're identifying as something that your surroundings need to, you said, reinforce it. And there's a lot here I want to touch on.
Yeah.
So you said, what was it? There's a lot more interesting, the addiction part of sort of side of us. But I think that it's a lot easier to identify with that kind of certainty of, okay, I do this bad thing. If I do this, then this happens. And identifying with that identity of yourself of all these bad things are going to happen, rather than trying to rediscover who you are as a person, who you are behind these masks, figuring out what it is you actually like, what makes you, what makes you interesting, what makes you, what creates value around yourself in these different environments, what makes you alive. It's a lot easier to just say, okay, there's this big bad thing. This is who I am. This is my biggest identity piece. And it's a dis-ease of the soul, but it's not in the mind, it's in the body.
Yeah.
So when we get into trauma resides in the body. And this is also why a lot of mindset stuff doesn't work, because you're only working with half the story. I like to envision it. So you've got a flashlight, and when you're just doing the mindset stuff, all you can see is in front of you. And yes, it can be a nice big spotlight, but until someone says, you can point the flashlight over there and realize, okay, this thing actually happened in my childhood. I had no idea this was still around me, but it's still impacting me. And this is where body work, somatics, inner child work, all these things start to come and play, and actually connecting with your emotions, because it creates a deeper connection with yourself, and you start to actually discover who you are as a person, and not just addicted to the identity of, oh, I'm an addict. And I stopped saying that I was an addict after, I think, after a year. So I'd been in coaching for about 3 months, and I started to learn quite a lot, and also began to understand how detrimental the start of every meeting was. Hi, my name's Rex. I'm an addict. You're reinforcing that belief of who you are, and you're almost keeping that possibility right behind you, rather than saying, I'm Rex, I'm sober, or I'm teetotal, or just I'm Rex. And that weight starts to move further and further away from you. And it's no longer there, because let's say we've both been sober for 10 years, and we're reinforcing belief. Hi, my name's Rex. I'm a coke addict and alcoholic. Hi, my name's Lee, coke addict, alcoholic. And we lose our parents and our kids and our wife this is a pretty extreme example, say a plane crash, and we're left isolated from the world. We're heartbroken, and all we want to do is just escape the world. If that identity is right behind you knocking, you'll think, yep, easiest, fastest, most guaranteed way to make you feel better, rather than it being way off in the distance and you having to climb a mountain to get to it.
Yep.
And by that time you've climbed the mountain, you've met some shamans, you've met some other people along the way. That thing is no longer your goal. That's no longer the only outcome. There's a lot more to you, a lot more tools in your toolkit to help you move through that. So, and I don't believe you're born with it. And again, also touching on the being born with it way, I had to believe that I was born an addict to begin with. But through my understanding, I know now why, because it helped me remove the guilt and shame from it. And I no longer had to take accountability, which then allowed me to start healing, start working with myself. So I think that is good to begin with. However, it is very limiting in its possibilities, because unless you take accountability and actually work on that shame, because shame wears a mask, you'll never truly be free from it. Because shame in its simplest form is I am bad, and guilt is I have done something bad. And then I can get into guilt as well, but I won't.
I think from my perspective, so I quit in December last year, but I'd went so the beginning of last year I went 3 or 4 or 5 months without using, and then I started doing these podcasts, and then vicarious trauma fucked me right up. It really got hold of me, and through the emotions of other people and really difficult conversations with people that I know and love, and they're telling me that they tried to take their own life, like the same way I did. I tried to take my life 3 years ago. Um, it just broke me. It broke me, It broke me to the point where the only thing I could see was drugs, cocaine, and alcohol. Um, but it's weird. I made a conscious choice. I said, "This is the last time I'm going to use, and then I'm never going to do it again." And I used that day, and I've never done it again since. And I spent 20 years at one point, mate. I was doing £1,000 a day at one point because I'd sit on my own in a dark room, no TV, curtains closed, with a box in front of me, cans to the right hand side, cigs to the left, and I'd just sit there all day on my own, all day and all night without I wouldn't move. Um, and that was the point where I tried to kill myself. But soon as I came into recovery, don't get me wrong, the first 3 months was really difficult, really, really difficult. But I no longer identified as an addict from almost the word go. And that was, I didn't do any programs. I didn't go to rehab. I just done it on my own. I had to take myself away from everybody I know and love for a long period of time. And then, that's where the education came in, the neuroscience, the biology, the trauma, the psychology, the neurolinguistics. I found all these things in the space of like 2 months. And I thought, wow, look, where's all this stuff come from? This is amazing. So I've literally stayed in the house now for 8 or 9 months. I go out to work, I play golf, I go to the gym, and I study, and I've got the kids and the missus. That's it. And it's been the best. It's been the most difficult 9 months I've ever had, ever. I've done more crying in 9 months than I probably have in my whole life. And like you said there, a moment ago, yesterday I put a post out because I asked a question on somebody's live the other night and this isn't me knocking the 12 steps, right? But they said that they dealt with their trauma through the 12-step process. So I said, I already knew the answer, but I said, I've never done the 12 steps. I said, can you tell me how you dealt with your trauma? So they said to me, yeah, going and sitting in those circles and having those conversations really helped me deal with my trauma. So I was like, okay, no problem. I said, I'm not going to question your beliefs. I'm not going to do anything. But then I made a post saying, people think healing is easy. People think having the ability to sit in a room and have conversation heals trauma. Don't get me wrong. Talking therapy is good. It's good for the moment to keep you in that present moment, right? But in order to heal from trauma, you've got to feel it out of the body, like you said. And then I said again, people think healing's easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. And this year, so I had a tremor in my left hand. My right hand a little bit, left hand was more so. Gone now. Had that for 20, probably had that since I was 12 years old. I had something, again, I've mentioned it multiple times, but I had something really extreme happen to me when I was 12. And ever since then, I've had a tremor in my left hand. When I get anxious, when I get nervous, it did get worse. To the point where when I met my girlfriend, she thought I had Parkinson's disease. And picked up a cup of tea the other night and she said, Lee, your hand's not shaking no more. I was like, wow. And then it goes to show that that was a trauma response, you know. That, along with the amount of toxicity in the body and the blood that I was probably holding from the poisons. But yeah, it's gone, and that then I know through that function that I'm healing. And the last thing I want to say before I hand it over to you is the reason that I don't tell you what happened to me when I was 12 is because I used it for a long, long time to lack accountability for what I've done in my life. But also, I'm in a really, really important moment in my life where I genuinely believe like I'm 99% healed from that trauma. And I feel as though the more I speak about it, the more it might bring that emotional association back to the moment. And it's with my mother. It's something that happened with my mum. And I feel as though I'm at that point where we're about to reconnect and have a relationship again. So I'm doing a lot of work around that, and I feel as though it's. I went to a house 2 weeks ago and I made a joke, something as simple as having a joke with my mother. I haven't experienced that
Right.
since I was a little boy. And somebody asked me, how did it feel? And I said, it felt like home. And it was powerful, man. Yeah. So I'll hand it over to you, mate.
It's very, very powerful. And as a offering to you, I'd love to offer a free 45 to an hour call to tap into that last kind of residual 0.1% that we could
Mm.
actually release. That you don't have to tell me anything about it. It's very much to do with feelings in the body and energy and allowing it to be moved. It's one of my favorite tools to work with in trauma because you don't have to say anything. It's all to do with how things feel. And I heard this analogy when it comes to trauma, which I love and I've used to this day. It's, so you've got in the animal kingdom and there's an antelope running through the plains. A cheetah captures it. The antelope energetically will leave its body and lie there thinking, okay, I'm dead. Nothing can happen. So it plays dead, lies there. And then the cheetah gets up to say, go and find another one. It will come back for later. But once that cheetah's gone, antelope realizes, okay, it's safe to come back now, comes back into its body, stands up, looks around, and then gives a full body shake, and then runs off and it's fine. Whereas humans, we don't do that shake. That shake is that trauma shifting away from the body. Like if a dog gets bumped by a car, jumps up, shakes it off, and it runs. Humans, we hold on to it. We clench, we shove it down, we lock it away in the dark corner of ourselves, but that carries a heavy, heavy weight. So that is kind of what that tremor is the energy trying to leave your body. So I'm very glad you've gone to.
Have you read?
Go.
Sorry, mate. Have you read the book Why Zebras Don't Get
No,
Ulcers?
never heard of it.
So it's a book on basically how stress and trauma in adults this eases the body, whereas like you're talking about there in the wild, let's talk antelope, or in the case of the book, a zebra. All they've got to worry about is eating food, sleeping, resting, and not being eaten. That's it. They're the four things that a zebra's got to worry about. Whereas we have all these other stresses, all these other traumas in our lives, and the body holds on to them. I'm pretty sure you've read the book, The Body Keeps the Score by
No,
Bessel
I
van der
haven't.
Kolk.
No,
No?
I've been meaning to, but I haven't actually read it though.
Okay. So the body
I
keeps.
know of it though.
Yeah, I've just I've um I've just finished it for the second time. It's really good. And it's basically what you're saying there. It's about the physiological aspect of trauma and how we hold it. And I agree. I believe there is that 1% left in my body that needs to be released. Some days I wake up feeling, wow, like a new man. It's funny because when I came out of a cocaine addiction, within a week or two, I collapsed with a couple of prolapse discs in my lower back. And I believe that was sort of this response of, why are we not drinking and taking drugs no more? I can't handle this, and then my back's just popped. So they told me that I needed surgery or I could heal it myself. So through the guy, John, who's been helping me, Teaspoon, listening to Joe Dispenza, read Joe Dispenza's books. And I'm trying to, the power of thought and belief and emotional attachment to a thought and improving your belief system that way. And by doing all these, I'm feeling superhuman almost. But yeah, so when you talk somatics, you mentioned there that I wouldn't have to speak if you were to help me. Are you talking about bilateral stimulation at all there?
It's a process called edging. So I can briefly touch on it. So basically, you bring a memory to mind or something that's happened, and you don't say a word about the memory. Rather, we focus. Okay, where is this residing in the body? Does it have a color? How does it feel? What shape is it? Sort of describe the feeling to me, and then as we latch on, so let's say it's a purple ball that's glowing. So okay, can you ramp that up a little bit? So okay, let's ramp it up to 70%, and it turns into this orangey red fiery ball. It's growing, growing. Your body's starting to get hot. You're starting to feel sort of tremors wherever. We bring it up to kind of the high end of yellow, and then we sit with it for a little bit. We allow it to be there. Then as it begins to dissipate, we come back. We kind of come back into regulation. We've gone through one process, and we do this multiple times, edging kind of higher and higher each time, and tuning in. Okay, my fingers are tingling. Okay, let's squeeze our fingers. Let's move them. Let's try and shift this energy, really tuning into how the body is wanting to move it, whether it's a tight jaw, try and sort of rub your face, bring yourself kind of back down, allowing it to move rather than get stagnant. And that's kind of how this shifts through the body, but also it increases your window of tolerance. So you can then hold more of what life throws at you because you can contain a higher state of energy within yourself without it throwing you out of control and have a feeling you're going to go crazy, you're going to die, all this other jazz that usually comes along with it.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's like almost like a more in-depth meditative body scan, really, isn't it? But it seems a lot more in depth. You're using more of your sensories, the visual
Yeah.
and the mind, the physical aspect of really trying to feel the sensations in the body and understand where the trauma is being held. That sounds like a really good tool. I've never heard of that one before. I've done a lot with some NLP tools, but they're association and dissociation tools for emotional state. I've used one called the Cinema Method, and I think it's incredible. Where as soon as he taught me how to do it, I was like, wow, this is fucking brilliant.
Is that the one?
There's one called the Ring of Power. The Ring of Power, I call it, where you picture a circle on the floor, and you'll step into the circle and think of a powerful moment. How does it feel? What colours are expressed in there? What emotions? What thought process? What can you hear? What can you smell? What can you taste? And then they step out of the circle, and then every time they feel as though that they're nervous or anxious, or they feel as though they can't communicate well, we'll picture that circle and we'll step into that circle. We'll visualize the circle in the room, and just an association technique for emotion, right?
Yeah. And another one I love is anchoring. So I do a lot of work with building confidence or feeling a sense of freedom or worthiness within oneself. And my go-to anchor is that. I've also got an anchor point between my big toe and the one next to it of like confidence. But I kind of rub my toes like that together, and I just get this feeling of confidence that once you're deeply connected in with that experience, anchoring it in. And then any time you need to feel it rather than going away in your mind, you've got a physical anchor you can push together and it awakens something within yourself. And I think the somatics is a body scan with a bit more manipulation. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got an anchor, which is so that's mine. I came across it in probably January or February this year. I was sat at home just scrolling through my laptop and I seen this anchor and I thought, what's that? Never heard of that before. Anyway, I sat there all day, mate, and I anchored it to a memory of me and my friend when we're 15, 16, and we were actually stoned. We were stoned, sat on his sofa. But makes me laugh now. All he did, he came in through from the kitchen into the living room with a pack of ham, and he just said, "Do you want some ham?" That's it. That's it. But I burst out laughing, and every so January, February, March, April, when I was struggling with the thoughts around addiction and trying to still, working out who I am. Every time I'd think where my addictive voice would speak and say, "Let's go to the pub. The sun's out. Let's go to the pub," I'd just tap my shoulder, and it'd instantly anchor me back into a different emotional state and allow me to carry on and progress with what I'm doing. And I think it was in the early stages that was probably the most important tool that I had in my
Amazing.
locker.
Yeah, it's a really, really powerful tool and great memory to anchor it towards. I think for myself, the tool which helped me the most before I even kind of knew about tools or personal development was I envisioned this beacon above my head, this old like 70s siren, red siren just going round and around that would go off anytime a thought or desire to drink or use would come in. But okay, something's off. Am I stressed? Have I eaten enough? Am I actually thirsty? Am I tired? Am I overwhelmed? Sort of what's happening? Am I still feeling some emotion I don't want to feel? That's causing me to want to run and avoid. And that beacon would go off multiple times a day.
What led you into wanting to be a trauma and addiction specialist? We'll call it. What was it? Because I know when we come into recovery, we like to give back, right? We like to understand the process and help other people with the same issue. But not many people will dive as deep as you have. And I'll put myself in that bracket as well because I believe I'm following a very similar process to you. A lot of the time, we'll work the surface level, right? We'll dig with a spade, a few digs, and then that's it. We don't want to go any further. We won't mention anybody in particular, but the conversation myself and you had the other day. Um, just because we've beat one addiction doesn't mean that we're out. Just doesn't mean we're in recovery, right? And a lot of the time, we will help on a surface level. Let's do cold water therapy. Let's do a little bit of yoga. Let's go for a run. But there's not many people who would say, let's sit in the emotion. And that's where I feel as though you're really comfortable the way you speak. And I believe, again, I'll put myself in that bracket because I feel really comfortable in an emotional state now with other human beings. Um, we don't like to address the sort of the shadow part of ourselves if we're talking Jungian psychology, but why do you feel as though you're almost, it comes natural? It's an ability that you have where I don't want to throw a percentage out there, where the majority of the people in recovery they don't have that ability.
Very beautiful question. And I think it comes from basically my entire life. So I never felt safe in a crowd. I never felt being in a popular group because they're very exclusive. So I always stood back and observed everyone and kind of picked up on micro expressions, body language, energetics, the rest of it, and kind of read people quite well. And then I had no idea or connection to my emotions for like over a decade, if not basically my entire life. And then went into rehab, And as I said earlier, I saw big burly men, these men screaming, crying, shouting, really just breaking down and thinking, I wish I could do that. I really want to do that. And eventually I started actually crying and getting in touch with myself through these process groups, which basically built the foundation for my sobriety and the journey I'm on today, or the path I'm on today, to be less. And then whilst I was in rehab, I started helping other people sort of go through their step 4, sort of get to those deeper emotional states. Even in the process group, I'd poke, I'd challenge, I'd call people out as we were allowed to do. And then I remember in one of the last meetings, they said, what are you hoping to get out of the 12-step meetings? I said something like this. And she was like, they're not like this. And I was like, what? So I went to the meetings thinking, okay, it might be the same. And just everyone was sharing, no processing. And it infuriated me because someone would come in and say, I'm here, I'm sober, wanted to drink today, really hate my boss, nearly picked up the bottle, but it's fine, I'm here. And this would happen for weeks. And I really wanted to say, okay, what's actually happening here? What's happening in your life that's causing you to be so frustrated? What anger are you holding on to? Where is this coming from? What emotion are you not feeling? And I said, no, it's fine. I'm here. I'm sober, one day at a time. So I wasn't getting that deeper layer of understanding that I needed and so desperately desired from the meetings. So then I got into personal development more so to understand myself a lot better and almost fell into working in addiction afterwards. Because when I first qualified, also got certified, I started working with people in addiction. But there wasn't really that much awareness around it. And everyone was saying, you're born this way, nothing you can do, go the 12 steps. So I went and worked in a few other niches and then came back with a much bigger fire kind of going into it. And I'd actually even go into saying that you're probably on a path to understand addiction in itself in a deeper way than I am. Because for me, my toolkit is quite broad and I pull from personal experience and all these different things I've learned. But let's say they've only gone to 30%, whereas you may be going to 70, 80, 90% in one or two particular things. So I'd even say your knowledge will probably exceed mine in certain areas because of the studying you're doing. And I think through doing, yeah, to answer your question really, really quickly and shortly, is you're only able to hold someone as deep as you've been willing to go yourself. Yeah. And because in
I
that
agree.
9 months, I was coached over 200 hours myself. I coached people 300 hours. I did a lot of deep internal work, uncomfortable, painful work myself, and went to those deep, dark areas. Then now someone else shares something quite big, quite heavy. I'm able to pick up that hammer and say, let's look at this together.
I think I'm in that place now. I won't go into detail. He told me not to. So, a friend of mine, I spoke to him yesterday, suffering with his alcoholism. He's just about to go into rehab for detox. And he told me his story, and it was a really, really painful story. Um, and I was aware of my emotions attached to it, and I went through when he was telling me. I was picturing what had happened. I was trying to understand the pain and suffering. The one thing I was really, really happy with when I came out of it was I was able to almost instantly dissociate from that emotional state. Whereas 12 months ago, when I was listening to stories on the podcast, and then I'd go home and I'd really struggle for a couple of days to get rid of this emotion out of my body, or the feeling of the emotion out of my body, should I say. Yesterday I was able to do it instantly or within 5 minutes, and I was really, really satisfied with that. Um, I think from what you just said, I feel as though you're able to, or if I was to answer my own question based on your answer, um, I feel as though it's because you were so vulnerable from a very, very early stage of your recovery. You wanting to be as vulnerable as those grown men who were extremely emotional within your environment. It's almost like you searched for that really, really early on. And as me, and you'll know better than me, you've dealt with a lot more people than I have, is emotions are the most difficult thing to sit with for a lot of people in recovery. That vulnerability is probably the last thing for a lot of people, because soon as those vulnerable walls fall down, the
Mm.
fucking floodgates open for all sorts to start coming through. And from what you've just said to me there, it sounds like from a very early stage of your recovery, you were willing to be vulnerable within your environment with the people around you.
Yeah, I wasn't even willing. I was wanting to be, even though I was unable to be to begin with.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I properly cried in probably 15 years. We were saying goodbye to a guy who I was in rehab the same first day as me. He was there for 14 days. I was for 28. And I felt this emotion building inside of me. And for years, I'd shove it down or I'd latch onto it, try and pull it up. I think I tried to pull it up at first and it disappeared. So I just sat with it, allowed it to bubble up deep inside of me, just tears starting to drip down my face. And when I spoke, I just flooded in tears, loads of snot coming out my nose, and just really being very emotional at saying goodbye. And it probably did trigger a abandonment wound because we came on the same day. We were quite good friends. But I also want to quickly touch on the vulnerable side of things because a lot of people believe that they are being vulnerable by talking about their pain and their emotion and their trauma and X, Y, and Z, but they're not allowing themselves to feel. I've worked with people who have said, oh, I'm very open about my emotions. I talk about it. I'm very vulnerable. I'm an open book. Like, you're not allowing yourself to feel things. Actually sit in that discomfort and see where that emotion's coming from, not deem it as good or bad or painful, just observing it and allowing it to move through you. Because an emotion, I think it should only last 90 seconds or maybe even shorter. But we latch onto it, we push it aside, we hold on to the beliefs that come around it. And emotion is energy in motion. And if we stop that motion, it gets locked down and it tries to bubble up or it comes out sideways. And I think it is
Say that again. Say
emotion.
that again. Emotion
Yeah.
is energy in motion. I'm going to write that
Yeah.
down. I like that.
And this
I
is
like
why
that.
a lot of people,
My
this is why a lot of people, they have, or like my ex-girlfriend told me this and I loved it. What phrase did she use? Oh, damn it. I love it, but I always forget what it is. It's disproportionate reaction to an event. I love that phrasing. So you've been holding on to a lot of stuff. You're this bottle that's about to explode, and you catch your hip on a door. Yes, it's painful on a door handle, but you blow up, you pull the door off its hinges, you scream, you shout, you kick it, you break it in two. You shouldn't do that. You should just go, ah, and then hold it and carry on walking. Because people aren't allowing that emotion to move, that it slips out sideways. Something just pops it and it all explodes.
my favorite quote when it comes to emotions is, the emotions are the messengers of our identity, of who we are as human beings. Emotions are trying to tell us something. Whenever they arise, there's a message behind the sensation or the feeling, and it's for us to understand that message. Um, a bit of work I was doing around the connection between me and my mum. Again, the guy who's been helping me a lot, Teaspoon, we done some work around thanking emotions. So when the emotion arises, you thank it, you accept it, and you walk away from that emotion, making conscious choice, moving forward with conscious decision from that emotion, rather than acting on emotion itself. Because again, 99% of the time, if you act on emotion, you're probably going to do the wrong fucking thing, right? So that was really important for me. That was only a couple of months ago that we did that work, and that was really important for me because I've really learned to
Mm.
listen to the emotion. What's the message behind it? And that was a really important moment for me. Listen, mate, I know you're conscious for time. This is something that we can do this multiple times. We can do this. That's the beauty of having our own. This isn't for me. This podcast isn't for me. This is for the people that come on it. You can use it for you, whatever you want to do. I'd like to do one face to face with you one day. And I know obviously the geography of it doesn't work out for us, but I've got one more question, mate, and it's a question that I like to ask everybody at the end of the podcast, and that is, if you could sit four people around a dinner table from the past, they can be alive, they can be passed away, they can be your heroes, they could be family members. Who would those four people be, and why?
So someone asked me a similar question a couple of weeks ago, and I shocked them, but I stand by my answer. So before I answer it, yeah, I feel like I could speak to you for hours and hours, and I think you're very interesting. Would love to come on and definitely take you up on that in person on maybe later on in the year. Hopefully, we should have some more time to do that then. And the four people would be. Some people might think this is self-centered, but myself at 6 years old, when we just moved out to Kenya,
Nice.
myself at
What an
11,
answer that is. What an answer.
when I just gone back to boarding school and I was crying my eyes out and had no idea who I was or where I was going and felt very abandoned and alone.
Wow.
I think myself again when probably when I was 22, just moved out to Australia, and then when I again myself when I was doing my 3 day benders at the age of 24, and just in the depths of hell, thinking I was isolated, alone, struggling on my own, couldn't do it, and just doing it. And I'd love to show these different parts of myself that there is hope, and give them the love that they never received or were never able to receive, because my family were very loving and caring and supportive, but I never felt deserving of it. So trying to help them feel more worthy, more accepted, more loved, as if they had value, and love on them and show them what is possible, even though the path ahead of them is painful and destructive and incredibly challenging. It all leads to something good in the end. And they're not at fault, it's not their fault.
So, I'm going to flip that. What would they say to you?
6 year old probably could be confused saying, why the fuck are we here? Why haven't you stood up for yourself? Why haven't you told your parents how you're feeling? Why you. Because, that's more. The 6 year old say, how can you teach me how to communicate properly? How can I actually allow myself to be heard and seen and not just isolate myself the whole time? 11 year old would be, he'd just hug me. Hug me, want to know everything's okay, and it's safe, and even visualizing that now is making me want to cry. And just really loving on that little boy. 23 year old would probably say, come on, let's go have a party, let's go have some fun. Let's do something crazy. And me and the depths of hell would be very dismissive, push away and say, fuck off, you don't know what I'm going through, and you're an asshole, leave me alone. Just go away, stop trying to control me. And very disconnected from the world. Their exact words, I'm not sure in this moment. But we can touch on it again on the next call if you like. Yeah.
That's probably my favorite answer out of. I think this is like my 40th episode now, and that's probably my favorite answer out of everybody's. because my childhood self is something that I've really learned to connect with over the last 12 months. I had, again, something that I've mentioned quite a lot. I went to an event last year, so I thought I'd say it here again because from your answer. I went to an event last year and we did a full day of mindfulness work, all sorts, really. And at the end of it, they brought on a lady and she was speaking. We went in sort of a meditative state and we done this technique. You'll know what it is, where you picture yourself out of your body, above you. Then you're at the top of the room. Then you go into the sky. Then when you come back down from the sky, you're in your safe space. My safe space was my bedroom when I was a child because I was locked in there sometimes for quite a long time. Um, with I couldn't get out. The door handle would be ripped off the door sometimes, and I wouldn't be able to get out the room. So I felt comfortable being alone. I'm very, very comfortable now being on my own. Don't get me wrong, I love being around my girlfriend, my children, but I find comfort
Mm.
in being on my own. No problem whatsoever. When I was in addiction, isolation was fucking awful for me. But now that I'm sober, I could go 3 days without seeing a soul and it wouldn't bother me one bit. Anyway, so I walked into the bedroom when I was a kid. I walked into my bedroom. I could see the DVDs on the walls. I could see the PlayStation 1, the Splinter Cell game that I used to play when I was 11 or 12 years old. I could see that on the side. And I hugged myself, my childhood self, and I hugged him. And I said to him, everything's going to be okay. And he hugged me back. And I get goosebumps, mate, talking about it. It's probably the most powerful experience I've ever felt because what it did, it connected the adult me and the child me together with love. Fuck me, it was powerful. Honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. And that gave me the opportunity to look within myself and go, we can actually do this. We can beat this fucking cocaine addiction that you've got. We can be who we were supposed to be as a child. And that was the moment where I made conscious choice based on emotional feedback to move forward in a positive way. And that was the spark. That was the spark of the man I am today and the person that sits here speaking to you.
Finish our work is incredibly powerful, and it is such an amazing talk to you. And there's a really beautiful experience you had. I'm running a little bit late, but I'd love to pick up where we left off another time.
Absolutely. No problem. We'll touch base and I appreciate you coming on, mate. And yeah, well, I'm sure there's many more of these conversations to be had, and I'm glad that I met you, mate. You're a
Thank you very
fantastic
much. Yeah, I
human
really
being.
enjoyed being on here and look forward to more of these in the future.